Welcome again to the channel, Life with Jennifer J, and I am your girl, Auntie Jen. Really? My viewers, my friend, and my subscriber, me say, me have to laugh. Glean, I want to know if correct on a paper, not make too much error, What kind of headline this? Politician. You have to say farmer politician. Farmer politician Lawrence Rowe, so may I add that. Win 1.3 million in police abuse case over unlawful arrest and assault. But when I saw it, I thought it was just the case the other day, my viewers, my friend, and my subscriber. Only for when I look further into it, is to realize that it's from a long time ago. Look here. The Supreme Court has ruled that former PMP, boy, they can't have to call PMP name, boy, they love PMP name. Former PMP party politician Lawrence Rowe was unlawfully arrested, assaulted and maliciously prosecuted by a policeman more than a decade ago. So that's from about 2015. This happened. So that means to say Lawrence Rowe always have running with the law. That's why they should even have you there as no standard bearer from day one. Wow. Over a decade. Lawrence Rowe. The judgment also carried a stern reminder to law enforcement to properly prosecute procedure to avoid burdening taxpayers. Justice Dale Staple in a ruling on March 24, 25 award Rowe. So we just hear about it. Awarded Rowe 1.3 million in damage for false imprisonment, assault, and malicious prosecution arising from 2014 incident in Almantown, St. Andrew. They always have a problem at Almantown, that's why they don't like him out there. I see what I'm going with Lawrence Rowe now. I'm getting a clearer picture of Lawrence Rowe. Really. There was no lawful basis for his arrest, detention, charge, and prosecution. I am satisfied that he was assaulted in the process of his unlawful arrest, declared Staple in 17-page written judgment that was published on the court website late last week. I would remind the police that in the exercise of their power to arrest, charge, and prosecute, that they should be mindful of the correct procedure and practice required for several offenses on the book, especially more common one encounter in routine beat duty, and carrying out correct processes, stapled caution. Well, I hope there is a police officer them will listen, because sometimes some of them use excessiveness. The judge said there's need to be more emphasis on this during initial training and continuous training and reminder for serving members of the force. Staple added, by better understanding and application of the appropriate steps to take before the effect of an arrest, charge, and persecution, our hard-working member of the force can significantly reduce unnecessary confrontation with members of the public, improve relationship with them, reduce litigation, and ultimately save the taxpayer a fortune in damage and other litigation costs that have to be expended to defend the suit. Rowe was the PMP. Lord boy, they not have call. It look like when everybody in a PMP, they not have call them PMP. Rowe was the PMP Kingston Central Constituency Secretary to Ronald Thwaites, who was the Member of Parliament at the time of the incident. Much later, he was named the PMP caretaker. He was removed in January 25, after which he said he resigned from the opposition party. Rowe has welcomed a Supreme Court decision calling it an affirmation of his rights and his reinforcement of justice due to process and accountability. This case was never just about me as an individual, but about ensuring that the rule of law prevail and that citizens are protected from any abuse of power. He said in a media statement Sunday, he said, aspects of the judgment are being appealed. Rowe lifted the lawsuit against the Crown, represented by Rowe filed the lawsuit against the Crown, represented by the Attorney General and Constable Clayton Broomfield, who was the arresting officer on March 7, 2018. He also claimed a breach of his constitutional right to a fair hearing. The trial took place on March 1725. The March 2714 encounter, according to Rowe testimony, occurred on Stephen Street near Almontown Police Station. He said he was walking through the area when Constable Clayton Broomfield accosted him and ordered him to go into his yard using foul language. Rowe said he objected and threatened to report the officer, at which point Broomfield grabbed him by his waistband, almost touching his crotch. No, sir. No. And hauled him to the station in a humiliating manner. Oh my God. He was arrested and charged with disobeying a police command, indecent language, and resisting arrest. He was later granted bail and reappeared in court on April 10, 2014. He was freed of all charges in the halfway tree lay magistrate court in 2014. Crucially, the Supreme Court had only Rowe version of the event, as the constable failed to appear to testify, and the judge rejected a last-minute bid to admit his written statement. I was not satisfied that the requirement under Section 31E of the Evidence Act had been met by the defendant, Staples said, noting the officer was being uncooperative despite effort including the possibility of remote testimony. So, officer, why you not going to testify? Now, your case, you should have gone, Mr. Officer. Nonetheless, Staples said Rowe was a credible and reliable witness whose testimony was not at all shaken in cross-examination. Rejecting the statement, defense judge said there was no lawful basis for the arrest. There is no evidence that the officer had a lawful basis for telling the claimant to go to his yard, the judge wrote, adding that Rowe had a right to assert to his right of freedom of movement. Staples concluded that none of the alleged action by Rowe amounted to disorderly and disturbing the peace under Section 11 of the Town and Community Act, nor was there evidence that Broomfield attempted to obtain Rowe's name and address as required under Section 23 of the law before effecting an arrest. Citing Shaquille Ashley, the judge said a person has an unqualified right at common law to resist an unlawful arrest. There is also no evidence that the second defendant, Broomfield, at the time making the arrest, tried to ascertain the name of the claimant. He wrote, noting further that even if he did resist, he would have been entitled to resist the arrest, as arrest was unlawful. But now them come out that day and say you're not supposed to resist the police. On malicious persecution, Staples said there was no basis to charge Rowe in the first place. There is, again, no evidence from the second defendant as to what the claimant did would have warranted the second defendant having any belief, let alone an honest belief, that the claimant was behaving in a disorderly manner. He continued, Broomfield had no basis for prosecuting the claimant for resisting arrest, as his arrest of the claimant was unlawful and the claimant was entitled to resist the unlawful arrest. So, there's more the judge outlined, and Staples awarded Rowe damage under the several heading, $350,000 for malicious prosecution, $400,000 for false imprisonment, $500,000 for assault and pain and suffering, and $5,000 special damage for transport expense. Each sum carried an interest of 3% from either March 2017 or March 2714, depending on the category. Defendant also to pay Rowe legal fee. And while Rowe had no medical evidence for the assault, and the charge had been brought before the lower court with limited public visibility, the judge nevertheless found its suffering real, citing the humiliation nature of the encounter and his role in the community as a director of a charity and a figure of standing. However, the judge declined to award vindicatory or aggregated damages, stating that there was no deplorable abuse of power arising from the evidence. Rowe was represented by attorney John Clark, while attorney Romaria Miller and Raquel Kang appear for the defendant. So, Rowe draw down in Parna draw from the court. But you have some problem. I hope I'm going to see where this other one going to go this time. If you're going to win, make we watch people and make we see what happened in this case. Leave your comment, leave your views. The conversation continues. I'm your girl, Auntie Jenna, and catch you next time. Bye.